Welcome to the F1 show with Kat. Welcome to our first episode. So on this channel or podcast, what we're going to be doing is we plan to bring you some race reports, race reviews in the 2022 F1 season, some insights into the happenings behind the scenes. We're going to unpack a bit of the F1 basics for those that are new to the sports, go through some technical things if you're not too affair, if you don't understand some of the technical stuff. Get a few other supporters from other teams to come onto the channel, give us their views on what's happening. And yeah, just have fun and share our passion for F1. Away we go. So we're just going to do a quick recap of the 2021 F1 season. So what was unique about this season was we had a record of 23 races. Normally you have 21 races in the F1 season. In 2020 we had 17 races, and that was obviously due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This year we had 23 races. The opening race is usually done in Melbourne, Australia in mid to late March. Didn't happen this year because of Australia's lockdown regulations due to COVID, so the Australian race was cancelled. Suzuka Japan was cancelled due to COVID as well. Singapore was also cancelled due to COVID. And the Canadian Grand Prix was also cancelled due to COVID. So what was new this season, the FIA piloted what they call the F1 Sprint. And basically what that is it's a very short race the day before the Grand Prix, and it's to try and make the sport more interesting, to give other teams a chance. And how it works, I'll just explain to you how it works briefly. So in a normal race weekend without the sprint, you have your Friday's practice sessions. You get 3 practice sessions, and they're about 90 minutes each. And then on Saturday morning you'd have one more practice session, and then with your qualifying session in the afternoon. And then obviously whoever qualifies with the best time would get pole position at the Grand Prix on Saturday. And then also just with the qualifying, so they eliminate the bottom 5 and then another bottom 5 until they've got the top 10, and then they race for grid position on Sunday. Now with the sprint in place, how it will work is you have a practice on Friday, and then you'll have qualifying for the sprint on Friday as well. So the practice now is 60 minutes, that's about an hour, and then your qualifying happens on Friday night, and then wherever you qualify on Friday night, that will determine your position for the sprint race on Saturday. So Saturday morning they get one more free practice session of 60 minutes, and then in the Saturday afternoon you've got your sprint race. So your sprint race is a 100-kilometer race. Depending on which circuit you're at, it could be anywhere between 18 to 25 laps, where a normal Grand Prix is anywhere between 50 to 52 to 70 something laps, depending on the circuit. So now this obviously adds more pressure and excitement towards the teams as well, because now you need to try to get the best position you can in the sprint so you can have a great grid position on the Sunday Grand Prix. Yeah, so where they piloted the sprint races this year, the first one was in Silverstone, second one was in Monza, and the last one is in Sao Paulo. All 3 of those sprint races were quite interesting. There was a lot of drama in the Grand Prix that followed that sprint race. We'll go through that a bit later. And the FIA have agreed to bring in the sprints in 2022. They're going to have, I think, 6 of them across the race calendar, and you're now going to be able to get points in the sprint race that will count towards the World Championship. So that's pretty interesting. It's something to try and make the sport more interesting. I think they're tired of certain teams just dominating, so they want to give everybody a fair and equal chance. Cool. Now we're going to talk about drivers in the 2021 F1 season. So the new drivers we saw on the grid were Yuki Tsunoda and Mick Schumacher. Those were the 2 rookies. Yuki finished 14th in the drivers' standings out of 21 drivers, and Mick Schumacher finished 19th out of the 21 drivers in the standings. This year was interesting. We saw so many different drivers take first place. So the people who took first place this year were Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Danny Ricciardo. He got a podium first time in a while. Esteban Ocon, his first podium. Valtteri Bottas. Alonso got his first podium in a long time. And Sebastian Vettel, although Sebastian Vettel's podium was disqualified because he didn't have enough fuel in his car. So apparently he was supposed to have, I think, 0.3 liters of fuel left after the race, and he didn't, so his podium was disqualified, and then as a result of that, Carlos Sainz got that position. Kimi Räikkönen retired this year after a long and successful career in Formula One. Max Verstappen took his maiden championship this year. McLaren were the only team, just a fun fact, McLaren were the only team this year to have a 1-2 on the podium. So Danny Ricciardo, I think it was Monza, Italy, Danny Ricciardo finished first and Lando Norris finished second. Some rumors about that was, I watched the race myself, but I think Lando actually kind of gave Danny Ricciardo that podium, because there was a point where Lando was behind Danny Ricciardo and he felt Danny Ricciardo was too slow and he wanted to overtake him, and then he said no, there's a back and forth between him and the teams over the team radio, and he was just like, okay, it's fine, let Daniel Ricciardo finish first, but he just needs to drive a bit faster. What is another interesting thing about how the season started was a week before the season started, Netflix released their Drive to Survive Season 3. So that got a lot of people into, interested in Formula One. Silverstone, Max and Lewis had their first sort of physical contact in a race this season. There was an incident in the cops' corner where Max and Lewis nicked each other, and Max went off into a barrier and had a 51 or 50G impact crash. Luckily he was fine. Lewis went on to win that race. That race also they trialed the very first F1 sprint format there. Monza, that was a very, very, for me, interesting race. Max and Lewis again had contact. They both did not finish. DNF, which we call it, did not finish the race. They both, actually Max and Lewis went into a corner, and Max kind of tried to cut it and then ended up on top of Lewis's car. Luckily both drivers were fine. Thank God for the halo technology. I think if it wasn't for that sort of halo ring that sits in the front on top of the car, that Lewis Hamilton wouldn't be alive today. In that same race, Danny Ricciardo got his first place podium in a long time, his first with McLaren, and I think his first since he left Red Bull. And then we saw the return of the shoey, which is always good fun. So basically what a shoey is, it's something I think only Danny Ricciardo does in the sport, but basically is when he wins a race, the champagne they celebrate with, he will pour it into his racing boot, like so. Let me show you. So say this was a racing boot, the champagne, he pours it in, and then he drinks the champagne out of his racing boot. I will do a shoey if when Lewis Hamilton gets his 8th championship, then I'll do a shoey live on the channel. What else did we see this year? Some of the boring races I think were the Belgium Grand Prix. It was basically 2 laps behind a safety car in the rain. I actually fell asleep during that race as well, and in that race the drivers were awarded half points. Baku was quite an interesting race where Max was leading for a while, and then he had a tire failure and he spun and he crashed, and then the race restarted with 1 or 2 laps to go. Lewis Hamilton, I thought, would take the race, but I think he pressed the magic button on the steering wheel. As a result, he locked up in the first corner and went straight. Sergio Perez won that race. Sochi in Russia, or Sochi, I don't know if I'm saying it right, but this was a race where we saw Lando Norris almost get his first place podium after Monza, although due to a bad tire choice, he was left out for too long and he started losing traction. Lewis went into pit, changed and put on rain tires, and as a result, when Lando started slipping and sliding around and went off the track, Lewis was able to claim that pole position. And then lastly, Abu Dhabi race, the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So this was the season finale. It's the first time since 1974 that the World Championship was decided in the final race, where both contenders went in with equal points. There's a lot of controversy around this race, with the race stewards, interjecting too much or making their own, kind of creating scenarios more. So the rumors are that they were creating a situation or scenario more for TV entertainment than for actual fair and equal sport. And as a result, Lewis Hamilton got his 8th championship sort of robbed from him, and Max Verstappen got his first world championship. Alrighty, so the latest news or rumors that are happening in the sport. This is news. Mick Schumacher has been nominated as a reserve driver for Ferrari for certain races. Antonio Giovinazzi, who used to race for Alfa Romeo this year, next year is out of a seat, but will be a reserve driver for Haas and Ferrari as well. The new FIA president, Mohammed bin Sulayem, has been sworn in as Jean Todt steps down after three terms at the helm. Nicholas Latifi is getting roasted and even getting death threats for his crash at the Abu Dhabi final. Max Verstappen feels that Sergio Perez should now be given a chance to compete for the championship. Max has also came out to say that he feels if his race engineer were to quit or leave Red Bull, that Max would quit F1 altogether. Mercedes won the Constructors' Championship, but they refused to do a photo shoot. Toto and Lewis also didn't attend the FIA prize-giving gala dinner. There are rumors that there could be penalties or fines for both Mercedes and Lewis for not attending this. We haven't heard any news from the FIA. And lastly, there were rumors that Lewis Hamilton could be quitting, but word on the street is that he's not retiring anytime soon. He still has a 2-year contract with Mercedes until the end of 2022. Alrighty, so last part of the show, just going to give you our closing thoughts on the 2021 season. I think it was a blockbuster of a season. Nobody could have scripted what went down this year. And the closer and closer we got to the finale, the more intense it got. It got harder for me to watch races because I had I'm rooting for my guy, and the storyline is like, ooh, I'm not sure if he's gonna win. He had some serious comebacks, and I guess unfortunately at the end, Max won. I'm not saying Max doesn't deserve it; he deserves it. Although I think there was some drama around the way in which the win happened, but it is what it is. The last time a championship was this close was in 1974, so a while before I was born. The FIA this year, I feel, has been very inconsistent with their rulings. So at certain races, certain regulations apply, and at the next race in the same scenario, that regulation doesn't apply. So we hope in 2022 we'll see more fair, equal, and safe racing. We got some insights into some of the pressures and the challenges between Red Bull and Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren. As the season unfolded, you got to see how some drivers were dealing with the pressure, how some of the team bosses were, you could see them acting out. It was a very animated season, even behind behind the scenes, where you could see people throwing earphones, shouting, calling directors, typing emails, sending them through to the race director. Did you get the emails? Got diagrams? So it was a crazy season. And we're gonna try give you more entertaining and insightful content as we go. That's a wrap for our first episode. If you're traveling this festive, we'd like to wish you safe travels. Be safe. Corona's still around. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and I'll catch you guys in the New Year.